Good evening. This is Jiiko Townsend, and this is Sensational, the Season Sister Soul Cast, where we have some mature and amazing women from different backgrounds coming together talking about healing, health, wealth, and just overall life lessons, giving wisdom from a rich place. We have a collection of our Soka sisters, our sisters of a certain age today. We bring authors, we bring PhDs, we bring daughters today. That is what we are today. And we're talking about our experiences. One thing that we are not prepared for, no matter how much we know is going to happen, is that day when we become the parent to our parents. That day we become the caretaker. And some of us have become caretakers to our spouses and other people in our lives. How do we continue spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially? How do we make the important agreements? How do we have the hard conversations? Well, today we're joined by a lovely woman who has taken this on as something very, very dear to her heart. Her name is Tracey Alcendor Robinson. And I am going to ask her to come forth and just assist us in this conversation. Now, Tracey has done something that I haven't run into a lot of people who have done it. I want to just see it as my ministry to help people in the end of life. It's so important. As believers, we want to take people to the altar and witness to them. But how many say, I want to help people in their end of life? So I remember her sharing that with me, and I could not resist having someone with that type of heart on the show. So hello, Tracey Alcendor Robinson.
Hi, Jaiko, and good evening, ladies.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. I just have so many questions, but I'm going to have to stick to the script because if not, we'll be here all night. So I just want to hear your story. How did you come into this type of work?
Well, it's interesting. I started since I was in fourth grade. I was in a fourth grade class, and we had an opportunity in Texas to visit a nursing facility, a nursing home, and adopt a senior. And at that time, I was already pretty old for my age. I always tended to hang out with the older folks. I loved interviewing my grandparents about back in the day, and many of my parents' friends were mature adults at the time, and I spent a lot of time with them because I learned a lot from them. And this is when I started to see the need with care, but it really came face to face for me when I got married and my husband expressed to me that his 96-year-old grandmother and the grandfather, who was about 4 years, well, she was 93 at the time, and I think he was like 90, he was like 4 years older than her at the time in New York. They kept falling and they were still living on their own. They were very active still. And it was time, though, however, to go and get them, bring them to Georgia, and provide care for them after the police had stopped the grandfather from driving down Linden Boulevard in the opposite direction, holding up all of the traffic in New York. And when the friend looked, it was Gary's grandfather. And when the cops stopped him and asked him what he was doing, he said he had just come back from getting his lottery ticket. So we realized that he was not going to stop driving, and I became very interested in bringing the whole family together, brought them down here to Atlanta, Georgia, and my mother-in-law put them in an assisted care living facility near her. The decline became very quick because they were already in their 90s. And one evening, the grandmother was going to the restroom, fell down,
Mm.
and she broke her arm when she fell, but the grandfather attempted to help her up. He also fell. The two of them on the floor, they sat on the floor for probably 3.5 hours because the nighttime staff, who, by the way, the location in the northern part of north, a little bit further north in Georgia, if you're familiar with Gwinnett County, um, unfortunately, those folks just were sleeping, that night staff. They were not supposed to be sleeping, but they were just chilling. And the grandparents laid on the floor for hours in pain. And the grandmother had to have surgery. It was someone in the room down the hall that heard them hollering and screaming finally and got help. He was able to go get help, this nice gentleman. And grandmother had to have surgery and she started seeing a decline. Her physician said she's probably not going to live much longer. She's older. She did have the surgery. I went to see her with my family and my husband, and I just broke down in tears because these were two Black, healthy senior citizens who had continued to be amazing. They were walking everywhere, they were really sharp, and this mishap really changed their lives. And so I insisted with my mother-in-law that we just move them into our home. We had a daylight basement, and we decided that we were first going to provide care. They lived out their days with us. In fact, the grandfather lived to be about 100 and the grandmother lived to be 97, a good 4 years longer than they anticipated she would. And they were very sharp up until the end. And we had, before they passed, we had started this project of opening a personal care home for senior citizens. Even though I continued doing my normal job, wanting to work, still worked my job, my husband still worked his job, we wanted to provide care on our side of town, the south side of town in Atlanta and College Park, Georgia, because there were so many professionals down here. And we felt that every family deserved to have quality care and to live out their days in dignity. And we shouldn't have been paying like $15,000 a month on the north side of town for two senior citizens to lay on the floor for 3.5, 4 hours. So
God.
that's what got us started.
Okay, we need a commercial break because I just need to process so much right now. I need to process so much.
Yeah.
Wow. So first, $15,000 a month to be lying on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
First of all,
Mm-hmm.
bravo to them. However, they were living to be driving and going to get a lottery ticket in their 90s. That's so
Just
beautiful.
him.
Just him.
Just him. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for you all to take them in. I'm hearing a lot of discussion online nowadays where people are debating if they should even take care of their elder relatives. And
Wow.
I didn't even know that was a
Wow.
discussion, but apparently
Wow.
it is. So
Yeah.
bravo to you. So you and your husband kept working. Were you raising a family at that time?
Yes, in fact, I was pregnant at part of it with my second daughter. We were newlyweds right before, right a little bit before it happened, and then I got pregnant during the time. So there was a lot going on in terms of the dynamic and what it was going to place on us as a family, as a new bride, as getting ready to be a mother a second time around. My husband was getting deployed again to this time to Afghanistan, to Djibouti, to Afghanistan and then Djibouti. So there was a lot of stuff going on, but it was never a consideration for me. I'm a Caribbean girl, and we don't dismiss our elderly, when they get old. And I know a lot of African American families are the same way. We don't dismiss them. If we have the means to care for them, you see multi-generational families typically, if people are able to. Everyone's not able to do it, but when they are, you typically will see that.
So how did you make that work? Like what are some little things you did or agreements you made? I mean, even the
Mm-hmm.
deployment, that's just another
Mm-hmm.
beast right there. So how did you make that happen? Because a lot of people are opting out of caring for their loved ones because they're saying, I can't keep my family going and I can't keep going to work and such and so. So
Mm-hmm.
how'd you do it?
So what I did, and I had more help than most people do, and the reason is that first we needed to just move them into our home, and we happened to have the space. We had a daylight basement that it was a no-brainer for us. The floor was we decided to opt for concrete flooring so they could push their walkers around and not be tripped up by carpets. And then my mother at the time was about to retire, but not sure if she wanted to, as a supervisor of CNAs or certified nursing assistants at an assisted care living home not too far away. And I said, Mom, would you be open to doing private care at the house for Gary's grandmother and grandfather? And she said, sure. And this was a nice way for her to start easing out of her regular work. And what we did is, after making sure the basement was built out to be handicap accessible, we put a speed on it. We had it done, and then we moved them downstairs, and then we started a rotation of nurses. So my mother knew two really great people that were also they were interested in doing a PRN work, additional work outside of what they do, and we rotated them in. At nighttime, my husband and I would pretty much be there. We helped. My mother trained me on some stuff. I re-upped with my CPR, and got a TB time test when we were getting ready to start the business. But we rotated it by employing family. At first, the agreement was that my mother-in-law would come and sit sometimes on the weekends with her parents, her sister, each one, she and her sisters maybe did it once, but after that, they didn't do it again. So it was legitimately on me. It was a decision that we had made. So they didn't, I don't want to say they reneged, but they just didn't follow through on it. And so I just enjoyed spending time with them anyway. And I learned to help them and learned to make sure they were safe. And so I took on a lot of the responsibility when my mother went home, if the other nurses were not around. But we relied on care coming to the house.
Okay. So I'm just curious now, did your children get involved with the elder persons that you cared for? Did they have that same interest like you did when you were a child? Like, I want to talk to
Yeah.
them and things like that?
So I was really determined to make sure that my children, as well as the cousins and nieces, friends of ours, were not afraid of elderly people.
Mm.
Those of you on the phone who've actually had young ones around senior citizens that are in their 90s or so can probably attest to this, but tiny kids who haven't been around senior citizens are afraid of them. I saw this time and time again when we were at the personal care home or the business. But in my family, because we owned the business, when my little nephew was born, he was over there as a toddler, and my mother had him there as a toddler for a few hours every day. And he was like the love of those ladies' lives. All of my children had multiple grandmothers because we had women at our business. And so the children played a very important role. And the role was extending the ability of these grandmothers, who were really like great grandmothers, to have young grandchildren in their lives. And the children benefited because I always, again, wanted my children, my nieces, my nephews, all of them to be around them. And then when we had the personal care home, one of the agreements that we had with the families was that we did expect for the families, since we were on the south side of town and many of them lived around us, to play an integral role in all of the activities at the facility. So we wanted them to come by anytime. We had an open door policy. We asked them to also participate when we had Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of those things. We would host those large events, invite them over, encourage them to bring the children. The Fulton County Board of Education had a school right next to us. They were our neighbors. They would come by and have like choir singing and things like that for hours. We also partnered with the high school, Westlake High School. For those of you on the south side, if you happen to be in Atlanta, Georgia, they would have the ability to do volunteer work. So this was a community effort, but it was really an effort to bridge the elderly with the young. And again, my family played a very big role in it. All the children, all of my kids, pretty much, with the exception of my 4-year-old daughter, grew up at the personal care home.
Oh, wow. How beautiful that you just had such a loving and supportive community, from family to friends,
Mhm.
professionally with your mom, having like-minded people. What a beautiful opportunity. And this, the way you're telling this, it removes that sense of burden that people
Mhm.
are talking about a lot. Like, oh, old people are a burden. And or people saying, when I get old, I want to be a burden. I'm like, this isn't to be looked at like that. I'm hearing a privilege. I'm hearing opportunity to share and
Mhm.
exchange. This is just
Yeah.
beautiful. So, what were
Mhm.
some of the things that were challenges that you had to navigate families through with this transition?
Mm. Oh man. So what would typically happen is the parent would unexpectedly decline, or they were noticing the decline, and mom or dad would sometimes find themselves in the hospital for some time. This is typically what happens. They have a fall, or they have some incident, some health issue or an event, right? And then a social worker would begin working with the family at the location. They would give them a care plan before they were discharged. And oftentimes that care plan also included the need to go to rehab. Now, if they didn't go to rehab, they definitely were dismissed with a care plan that indicated that they needed to have assisted care living or nursing facility living. But typically, we handled assisted care living. Even when our senior citizens began to decline, we did everything we could to keep them in place. Because I don't know if you've read about statistics, when a senior citizen is forcibly removed from their home, it's about 3.5 years. They grieve, and they oftentimes they expire because of the grieving. So what you want to do is create a home environment for them as best as possible,
Yeah.
keep them as home as long as possible. So one of the biggest challenges that we had was the adult children having to come together sometimes for the first time, because they aren't always getting along. Sometimes there are geographical limitations. Always there are financial limitations. And they have to now put their heads together to decide what is right for mom or dad. And so I would say them being on one accord, once the social worker would get with them, they would provide them with an agency. One of them, for example, is a Place for Mom. Atlanta has a number of them that we were working with. We would get an email with the profile of the senior citizen in need and what they needed, if it was a private room or if it was a shared room. And if we had availability, they would tour. The family would make a decision. But I would say it was always for the family to sort of step into action, be on one accord, because they were now in reactive mode,
Yeah.
because many
Yeah.
of them did not anticipate mom or dad declining in the way that they did, as fast as they did, without a solid plan. And
Mm.
money oftentimes became an issue, because our personal care home was private pay. We never raised our prices above $2,500 ever for the entire
Wow.
time all of my seniors were there. I broke even. I was a break even business. Okay. But you will see personal care homes charging much, much more than that. I still had to pay staff. I still had to have a housekeeper come in. I still had to do, but we did a lot. And we had an organic garden on the side that we ran. But again, I wanted to keep this business on the south side of town, and I wanted our people to have dignity. I didn't want the type of place that you walk into it and you smelled urine, or you saw people looking ashy, or you saw people looking unhappy and confused.
Yeah.
In fact, this is what ended up happening, and this is the grace of God. We had like maybe 3 people pass away the entire time that they were there. One had congestive heart failure, another had liver failure, and she was end of life anyway when she came to join us. These things happen. But for the most part, our senior citizens stayed with us until we closed our doors. They started passing towards the end. One was 101 though, right?
Wow.
So and
Wow.
and then so that's to tell you we protected them during COVID. We protected our campus during COVID, all of those things. And so getting it together is really the hardest part, being in reactive mode. So, it's really good to have these discussions with your parents long before anything starts going down. Have these discussions with siblings long before these things start going down. Um, I will tell you guys that birth order does come into play here. And you were absolutely right with your statement earlier. And I want to share some stuff with you just real quick. Oldest children do tend to be the quote unquote default caregivers, right? Because everybody has socialized us to be responsible, organized, and protective. And we were treated as junior adults in the family oftentimes. So everybody's looking up to us, expecting us to step up during a crisis. They typically do default into being the coordinators of care. They're the ones who tend to handle the logistics, finances, and medical decisions. And those siblings are often looking to us for leadership. But it doesn't always mean that they provide hands-on care, but often that they carry the mental load. Now, the middle children, they typically are known or seen as the negotiators. They tend to be more diplomatic, more flexible. They like to avoid conflict. My brother is classic when it comes to this. They often feel overlooked or squeezed in between the siblings, but in caregiving decisions, they often try to mediate between the siblings. They take on supportive roles rather than leadership, and they step in when the oldest is overwhelmed or the youngest is unavailable, but they can be the glue that keeps the family functioning during this really crazy time, even though they're not the primary caregiver. Now, lastly, the youngest children, they tend to be the emotional anchors. And the youngest siblings are often seen as the baby of the family, even in adulthood, and they're less likely to be assigned the responsibility early in life, but they are more connected emotionally to the parents. And in the caregiving scenario, they provide emotional support and companionship, and they spend more times with the parents socially. They tend to be less involved in decision making unless they push for it, and sometimes the youngest ends up doing more hands-on care simply because they live closer or have more flexible schedules. But this is usually circumstance, not expectation.
Mm.
Okay, so a lot of things come into play here when this crisis happens: geography, the gender norms, financial stability, work flexibility, parent-child relationship quality, and cultural expectations. And all of this can create tension because there's resentment that we've seen pop up in these scenarios. There's always the guilty part. I should be doing more for mom or dad. The power
Mm.
struggles. You're not the boss of me, and just uneven workloads. And the patterns are predictable in it. We saw it play out over and over again. But the thing I would tell you all is what healthy families do differently. They talk early before the crisis. They make responsibilities explicit rather than assumed. And
Mm.
so roles and responsibilities, right? And they match the task strengths. So maybe somebody is good at finances, even if it's the older person, the older sibling, right? Maybe they just can do the finances, or even the younger one. I don't know who it is, but maybe somebody's better than that. Maybe somebody else is better at just visiting weekly. That's huge for the mental piece and for the optics of the caregivers that of wherever the parent is at, if they're somewhere. And then also, what's important to keep in mind is that they need to revisit this plan and edit it as the parents' needs change, because I can guarantee you the standard of care is going to have to increase over time as that parent's condition decreases. And you have to account for that in your planning. And I'll stop there for now.
Well, you might as well drop the mic because that was a master class. That was
No,
a master class. Thank you so much. I mean, I had other questions, but you answered them. Wow. Wow. And I'm not going to sit here and echo everything she said because she already said it. But that was a master class. Thank you. Did any of you really see that ring true? Okay, first of all, let me ask by a show of hands, those of you that are on tonight, how many of you have had this scenario already where you were caring for parents? I think we're pretty much 100% here tonight. 100% has cared for parents. And let me see your reactions. Were you, give me some hearts or something. Were you really hearing some of these things ring true? As far as what Tracey was saying, from birth order, from our need to have these conversations that, yet, no, we don't want to have them. They are hard. They are difficult. Nobody wants to talk about mom and dad passing away because a lot of times that is our worst nightmare. As a child and even growing up, it's like, I can't even think about that day. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. But you hear Tracey telling us we have to be proactive. We have to have these conversations. We have to have the plans. There are financial implications, just logistical implications. That increase of care, as she described, as parents will decline. Thank you so much, Tracey. And at this point, I'm going to open up for questions, comments, connections with what Tracey has shared. Some things we've already talked about, some of you with me. And I just, whoever would like to start out, if not, I can call on some folks to get us started because I know some of the connections that are there. So, any hands? If not, I'm going, okay, sister girl, I'm going to add you to the pen. Please open up your mic.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Um, yes, very much. Thank you, Dr. Tracy, for all that you said. Um, One thing that I know that rang true in our family situation, we were all we had our assignments, and we did not talk about it per se. It just seemed to naturally just kind of fall into place. But one thing that was exceptionally um, difficult to deal with was just the overwhelming sense of loss, and when they're sick, how it's slow, and it becomes just increasingly more painful as you quote unquote watch them slip away. And then the one thing that we joked about, my family, we have a really twisted sense of humor. But one thing that we joked about was that how after we lost them both, how we felt like orphans. And it's a weird feeling to not have a covering. And for me, the at the time that um, my my father was sick, my husband was sick. So I was caring for my husband, and I really couldn't care for my father. And just the sense of pain that I felt, not really being able to really get my hands on my father as well, because I was putting my hands on my husband. So the sense of the loss became compounded, and I actually became kind of numb in the midst of it. And actually, I believe that as I watched my family members, um, we became very numb. One of us completely lost their mind, and we were going to have to throw her out in the backyard because her emotional roller coaster just took her all over the place. But you can't conceive of the level of hurt, loss, and pain. And for me in particular, at the very end of my father's life, I wasn't even sure that he knew who I was. And still to this moment, that still it still weighs on me. It still bothers me from time to time. So, but just the incredible hurt and loss that you can't describe, and that you're walking in the middle of it, and you're it's surreal because you don't really believe that these strong people are slipping away. So yeah, and I'm sure that we can all kind of identify with that.
Wow. Thank you so much, sister girl. And our heart goes out to you. That is a lot. Being a caretaker for your husband and your father is sick at the same time. But I don't think anybody here would say you did the wrong thing by taking care of your husband, especially I mean, that's your job. And then you had siblings that could take care of your father. And I understand that you desired that time, but God doesn't make mistakes. It was time for you to be there for your husband, and it was time for the siblings to be there for the father. And so we just pray that you just have grace and give yourself grace continually in that situation as you continue to heal, because Lord knows it's a lifetime. You don't stop. If you have good loving parents, you don't stop missing them. And I certainly know the orphan feeling. So God bless. Thank you so much. Did you have a response? And please forgive me. Dr. Tracey. Please forgive me for not saying Dr. Tracey. I kept saying Tracey.
That's because we have a long history since we were 14, everybody. It's
Yes.
totally okay.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, we have Boss C. I'm going to add your pin. Please unmute. You may speak.
Thank you for that, Dr. Tracey. I can relate as well because I had to wrestle. So I was a caregiver for my mom, and then my brother passed away. We were her only kids. So that made me, so I became an only child.
Hmm.
And during that period of grieving through for him, this all happened in 2021. I had like 7 family member deaths. It was like every 30 days, close girlfriends. And it became too much that I wasn't able to care for my mom because I didn't have the capacity because I was grieving and then grieving because of her decline. So I had to make the decision. I looked at several assisted living facilities, nursing facilities. The nursing facilities here in Maryland are horrible, so I could not do that. I did find, and then the other assisted facilities, the really really nice one, the costs were like $7,000 to $8,000 a month. So I found one and I was paying about $4,000 a month, self pay. So no assistance. My mom was an entrepreneur. She was a hairdresser. So that means she was getting a small social security check and a small pension, but she didn't have much. So that means $4,000. Her contribution might have been like 900, and I had a son in college and all of my other financial. So I had all of that financial woe, her care, just dealing with if I was making the right decision by putting her in an assisted living facility. So it was hard. Like I couldn't sleep. I was up at the facility just about every day. I didn't announce when I was coming. I was just doing pop-ups because I was not comfortable with putting that trust in someone else. And so they did good for the first year. I did get relaxed. My daughters will pop up when I couldn't, and then God was like, "It's time to bring her back home."
Okay.
And so then I made the steps to bring her back home, and it was difficult. So because my mom had dementia, so it was like time for her to come back home because she was starting to decline, but I didn't know that she was declining. And so it was God had some things that He needed to work through with me. So as I'm taking care of her, I'm also evolving. I'm also changing, and I appreciate that I had the opportunity and was blessed that I was able to care for her regardless of the financial woes. Like I'm still recovering, like I'm still trying to recover financially, get back on my feet. But it's a lot, especially if you're an only child. So I had to take us, take a step back and like lean on my kids, lean on my children to assist and to help to relieve some of the pressures that was on my shoulders. And so they helped to pay for care because she needed round the clock care. They helped to pay for care. We all had days. So we drew a line like this is the plan. This is everybody's schedule. And it was beneficial. And my grandkids, because my mom used to was a daycare provider for the kids. And so my grandson would just sit in her room and play. And that brought her so much peace just to hear the kids playing in her bedroom. And they were at peace playing in her bedroom. And so it was like, those were the things that made her feel comfortable and happy to be back home. So I just thought I would share that.
Wow.
That's beautiful. You went through a lot. So, what I would share with you is, first of all, I'm just so touched by all of your stories. And I know the position that you were in. And I admire your strength. And I know one thing that's really beautiful for your parents is that they got your love up until the end. They were home with people they loved or people they trusted. because it's a hard situation for folks to be at a facility um, and not seeing, first of all, not seeing their family because there are many of them. My aunt is currently with my mom. She was airlifted back in November from St. Croix, the Virgin Islands, to Miami and had to have hip replacement. She's dementia. She's last stages of dementia. So she's total. She can't do anything. And her recovery to walk again, she can't even remember. So she's having trouble remembering how to walk again, even. And it's a heavy amount of care, but she doesn't have children, and I'm her goddaughter, and she's my mother's older sister. That's another factor you all might have to deal with. It's not just mom or dad. It might be an aunt or uncle who doesn't have children, spouse is gone, and you didn't anticipate that as well. And so, that dignity that you provide, that last love, and I heard somebody say they weren't sure if mom or if dad knew who they were. His heart did, because the way the brain goes as well is that, and my aunt's doing this, where sometimes she'll remember random things, so their hearts know though, and they feel safer, even though, dementia can also change their personalities greatly.
Mm. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it's just such a blessing. I keep hearing that theme of just community and family, generations. Even with Sister Girl, there was still the siblings there with dad. I'm there with husbands. There may have been some switch off and things like that. And I'm sure there were times everybody came together. The beauty of just those children playing in her room. I don't know what that house looks like, but I was there. It's like the peace and the love. Oh my God. And just thank God you were able to give that to her. Thank God you were able to give that to her. And I'm gonna go in all the time. I'm like, look, God's gonna bless you. God's gonna replace or increase or make it so you don't need that money back because you did it in service of your mother, and you are honoring your mother like God commanded, that your days belong on the earth. So I believe it. I believe in the spiritual principles that God has shown us. Absolutely. I am so thankful for I'm just so thankful for your story and that gift. So thank you, Boss C. All right, I'm going to bring someone else up. And I also wanted to say this, Dr. Tracey, that birth order thing was really profound to me. I'm bringing up God's child because I'm the youngest, and I heard you saying we about the oldest, so you're the oldest, obviously. And I felt that sense of closeness. Not that, our parents were always careful to say there's no favorite, right? And I don't believe they did have a favorite, but there was just a sense of closeness, like I was the baby. And up until the point where they literally, my mother had transitioned and they came to pick her up and everything, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stand outside by the van because I'm supposed to be with mom. Right? And I knew that it was only her body there and her spirit no longer was, but I still felt like, I'm supposed to be out here with mom. And I just thought that was so profound how you broke down that birth order thing. And even sometimes there's multiples and there may be more than one middle even. So I was listening and looking at my family. So thank you so much for sharing that. Hi, God's child. You are on. You may unmute.
Okay. So I really resonate with everything that everyone is saying. I feel like I am I'm always on the fence because I fit in a lot of things. So I was my mother's only child, but I'm my dad's oldest child. So I lost my mom in 2000, and I really resonated with those of you who said feeling like a orphan. I was raised by my dad, and raised by my mom, and I know my dad loved me, but just with his own issues, he would often choose others before me. And so, um, we didn't have a strained relationship, but it's definitely gotten better since he's my only parent. So, I was not able to be there with my mom in her final days because she wasn't being honest with me. Like, she wasn't even going to tell me she was sick. First of all, I learned that later on in the situation. Um, but I think so. I always have that guilt that I wasn't with my mom, even though it's not my fault. And there's really nothing I can do about it. So, that for me, okay, that is in the back of my head, and I just have to pick it up and put it somewhere else, because I can't dwell on it. So with that, I decided, okay, I will try to do more for my dad. But again, choices and his lifestyle, he does not have great financial footing. So putting him in a facility is probably not something I at this point I can see happening. Um, and although I do have a sister with that I share my dad with, again, people's choices, she often chooses her family, her husband's family, her or herself over something that relates to my dad, and that's fine. Um, so in that, my point is, if you choose to be a caretaker, then great. But some of us know that we cannot for a myriad of reasons. Or some of us choose not to because we've already been down this road. And, for me, when I was initially taking care of my dad before the dementia, he, nobody was supportive. So I was pretty much doing it on my own. And the few times that he did have health issues, then, well, you're not doing this, or why aren't you over there? Well, I'm not going to be there every day. I will do pop-ups. I have things that I'm having to do also. And so I am often an only child, even with having a sister. And so when the situation arose that we parted ways, and then COVID happened and my aunt had to come and get him and take him to Texas because she was afraid of him being alone, for one reason. That was a blessing in disguise for me because there was nothing I could do. I wasn't even in the United States when COVID happened. And we just have not really moved from that situation anymore. Now, he's not exactly happy being with his sister, and sometimes his sister is not happy with him being with her. But I think I'm trying to make a learning situation. So, that's my input.
Wow. First, I would just like to say guilt is such a thief. I'm
It
so
is.
tired of him. I mean, one of these days. But I just really would invite you to consider that, the trick about this is they really are adults. They're the
Yeah.
adults that raised us, and we may not like the choices they make about their end of life process. but it was her choice to keep that to herself. And maybe she was protecting you in her mind. And I understand that you feel like you missed that opportunity. But I think something that gets really difficult in these situations is when our adults, our parents, our loved ones make their choice. And all we can do is respect it. All we can do is just do the best we can with it. So I just pray that that's something that you may not have had that opportunity, but you had a beautiful opportunity with that woman to the point where she wanted to protect you. And that's something to be celebrated. That is something to really cherish, that you had someone who wanted to do that. Even with your father, there are some things that he's happy with or not happy with. But sometimes you may get to the point, it sounds like you're going to have to make a decision whether he likes it or not. And that's where it gets tricky with your parents, when you're telling them, hey, look, Dad, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's difficult because you're their child, no matter how old you are. But sometimes it comes to that. We have to say, look, this is what's going to have to happen. And I will say, we were blessed because we had whole meetings about our parents. Our father would be like, okay, tell me what you came up with after you finish your meeting. It's like, is this the same guy that raised me? Like, the same guy that whooped me in the closet? In the walk-in. So, but now so they were they really were cooperative, but a lot of parents just are not. Do you have any, would you like to weigh in on that, Tracey? And after that, anyone else who, yeah.
Yeah, sure. What I do want to acknowledge here is that, not every adult child is able or willing to step into the caregiver role. And there's no judgment with that, because sometimes it's necessary to take that stance. For some, the most honest act is actually acknowledging their limits, their history, or their boundaries, because their experience deserves space too. I mean, I've seen where people have had a history of trauma or neglect around the relationship with that parent. The parent, was emotionally or physically abusive, and there's that estrangement factor. They have a different relationship with some of the kids than they do with the other kids. We already talked about the geographic and the financial limitations, but then there's also that what she mentioned, which is the caregiving burnout from an earlier situation, and being that default child for too long. And I think that it's okay to name this complexity around the situation, which actually helps remove the stigma of people feeling like, gosh, I didn't do this. A lot of people are going through grief for the relationship that they wish that they had with that parent. And for the grief of the version of that parent that they never get. But then, here they are finding themselves in this quiet grieving space, private and rarely acknowledged, and then the weight of judgment from their family members. And those kids that want to step back, they often are feeling criticism from other siblings, from other family members, the pressures that come with extended family that tells you just get over it. Just the internalized guilt. And then the last piece of this is just, leveraging that boundary as survival. I've seen people that have had to do it for their own mental health. If that relationship was chronically unsafe and that kid spent years healing, they got to protect their mental whatever's too. So that can complicate it. And they might need to provide care from afar, meaning that the parent is in an assisted care living home and they're doing the best they can.
Wow, I appreciate that perspective. I do, because some people I've been talking to over the last week, it's like everything's on me, and this sister, this brother, they're just going and living their lives, and I'm sitting there like, how dare they? But that is, I'm riding with them, but that's a valid perspective. And like you're saying, these people indeed have said they've experienced the mother differently. Some experienced the mother as, she was just the rock of my salvation. Then the other one is like, I don't want to talk to that lady. They experienced her very differently. Wow, that's a great perspective. Thank you so much, God's child. I'm going to bring up Joey Mama. And then next, we will be moving to hot and spicy. Joey Mama, you may unmute.
Just a couple things. I took care of in various stages my mother, my father, and my aunt. And my aunt in particular, I saw a look of fear in her face that scared me. So just keep in mind their fear. They have no idea sometimes what's going on, which may cause them to lash out. Also,
Wow.
Well, the birth order thing, I say that because we all have different strengths. I believe it's been said before, but sometimes we want to claim things we don't own or we don't have because I'm the old. If you don't have humility, you have to, if you have to be somewhere in there, has to be one person who can be humble enough. If you're an only child, reach out to those persons who make decisions based on their head and their heart, not on, I must be right all the time. I need to be able to have the humility to say, I don't know. I can be wrong. I'm human. No one is right all the time. But when it comes to these people who have cared for us, there's going to be a lot of pain because my mother, in the throes of her illness, looked in my face. I said, Mom, do you know who I am? And she said, your face looks familiar, but I can't place your name. And I had to take that pain and bury it because I had to worry about, put it aside and then work with it later. There's so many layers to this thing. And if you're working with siblings, hopefully that's a blessing. But if you and your siblings aren't of one accord, you've got to protect yourself and hope and pray to your higher power that what's best for the parent will be done.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Joey Mama. And I remember moments like that myself. It's like you don't lose them all at once. It's like you lose a little bit over time. It was a little bit more and a little bit more. And each one really hurts. Each one really hurts. But if you're caring for them, you see they're afraid. You see they're uncomfortable. You see that they don't like this path. This part of life is just not comfortable. And you're being there for them, and you have to bury that pain. I have definitely been there with you, and I'm sure others here have as well. And
you bury it in the moment, but you have to address it at some point in time. You can't just keep it there, but in the moment, you have to put it aside, deal with what's going on, and once the crisis or whatever is over, then you need to do you, or you're going to lose yourself.
Yes, indeed. And find a supportive community like here. We may not be physically blood sisters, but reach out, come into community, talk about it, hug it out, and share these experiences because they're common. We're amening each other and sending hearts because we know the feeling. And this is the path that blessed people are going to take. If you think about it, if you just to live long enough to see your parents transition, your parents don't want to see you transition before them. This is the natural order of life. And this is something that I've had to tell myself, you know what, I can make it through this because this is the order of life. This is how God set it up. So if this is how God set it up, then I am made to survive this. And sometimes I just had to be logical like that to keep myself, just in a healthy place. I had to do that, but we really are. We're made to
And
make it through this. Imagine the people who don't have the means to
mm,
take care of their parents, don't even have the connection with their parents. They could have lost their parents when they were 6, 7, 8 years ago.
and
So
start
even
the
with that, we can count our
dialogue as
blessings.
early as possible. My
Yeah.
daughter's 27. We've been talking about some things. Mom, I don't want to. We have to talk about it, darling, because when the time comes, you need to know I'm okay and you're going to be okay, because that's all. Let me stop talking.
No,
There's
you're
so many
right.
things going through, but it's hard. But life is not supposed to be easy. And we do the hard things now. So when the time comes, it will be easier for everybody. This is when we need to talk about it, when we're all in our right minds, when we all have a say, when I can say to my child, this is what I would like to happen when I'm gone. Okay, so you're 27. No, it's a little difficult. I'm just going to throw it out in little bitty pieces. I'm going to start. I'm going to work on it. We're going to work our way up to it, because I was lost when I lost my mother. And by the time I lost my father, I was an adult. And I just wish I had more, more of me, knew a little bit more about myself, knew a little bit more about I'm going to have to deal with this when I lost my mom. But I don't want my daughter to go through the same thing. So both of my parents are gone. I can't work on that end, but I can work on this end now. So maybe we are breaking a cycle. Maybe we are the generation that's going to say, we need to talk about this and make it real.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Joey Mama. We're gonna try to get in a few more. We're gonna try to get hot and spicy. Mocha, I got a few hands up, so we're gonna move on through. Come on, hot and spicy.
I am of the firm belief that everything I've done in my life has always prepared me for something, right? Every job I've ever had, every experience I've ever had has prepared me for something. And I was a nurse's aide when I was in college because initially I wanted to be a doctor. And I was like, I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to study that much. I don't like school that much. So I got to get out and get a job. But those skills always stuck with me. And I was a nurse's aide for 2.5 years. And when my mother got diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time, and it started metastasizing and spreading throughout her body, I went home from North Carolina and I took care of her until she passed away. And me and my mother did not have the best relationship when I was growing up, but that's still my mom, and you only get one, right? And I wasn't about to let her go into a home, and I wasn't about to leave her in the hands of my daddy and my brother because they both crazy. So no, thank you. I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna take care of my mama, and that's what I did. And until she passed away, and it was the most humbling, heartbreaking experience I've ever had. And because we look so much alike, it was really hard to watch your own friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was like I was watching myself suffer. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be there for her in that space. So no, we were never like best friends. My mom was not someone that I always called. I would go months without speaking to my mom just because me and her were too much alike. And I know that. Hatfields and McCoys bump heads on everything because she want to tell me what to do and I'm grout. Okay. And I moved all the way to North Carolina from Ohio to get away from her so I can live in my own shadow and not hers. But my mother was a businesswoman. She had her own insurance agency. She made a lot of money. She did a lot for a lot of people, but not necessarily for me. And that's okay because I made my own way. And I was resentful of her for that for a very long time. But as an adult, I'm so grateful because I can stand on my own 2 feet. I'm not married. I'm a single woman and I have thrived. I've been able to buy property. I've traveled the world on my own dime and I didn't have to depend on anybody else, least of all my mom. I mean, I never went out the country until I could pay for it. My mom was like, "Oh, you want to go out the country? Oh, well, you might want to get you a job." And that's what I did. And then I went back to North Carolina for about a year. And then my father called me and told me that he was having his kidney taken out. Whoa, sir, wait a minute. How did this escalate? So
Mm-hmm.
here I go back again to Ohio. And I stayed with him throughout that process. He had cancer in his kidney. They removed the kidney, they removed all the cancer, but he still has prostate cancer they have not treated. But I
Okay.
stayed with my dad for about 3 months and nursed him through that transition, having that surgery. And I said, before I leave Ohio, I'm going to go see my grandma. When I came to see her, she wasn't moving too good. I said, "What are you doing? Like, why are you hunched over like that?" She said, "Oh, I just got this pain. I don't know what's happening." And she wasn't coming downstairs because she got this big, huge house and it's just her here. I said, "Okay, let me go back to North Carolina, get me some winter clothes. I'll be back." And so I've been in Ohio since September the 25th. And my grandma ended up having a surgery on January the 6th. I made her go to a different hospital on January the 2nd because clearly the first one wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. And we took her to a new hospital. They were like, "Oh, she's got this cyst. That's the problem. Let's remove it." She had surgery and she came home. She recuperated from it. And now she's riding her stationary bike 20 minutes a day and fussing at me and giving me the side eye because she over me because she 87 and she says she grown and she don't need me here and she could take care of herself. But whatever. And like I told her, I hate to tell you, but I get mail here now. So if you want me out, you're gonna have to go downtown and call the people and file an eviction. Okay? I leave when I get ready. But the difference between my grandma being sick and my father and my mother being sick is when it was my mom, it was just me. I didn't have any help. My dad would get up at 4 in the morning, leave the house, and he would come back at 8 o'clock at night. It was just me. And I
Mm.
was working full time. And I have a brother, and he lived right across the street in a house that my mother bought for him. And he would come in the house, he would go downstairs, speak to my dad, and he wouldn't even go upstairs and talk to her. He wouldn't even go and acknowledge her. And I was very angry with him for a long time, but I had to realize that who lived so close to her and she did everything for her, he couldn't deal with seeing her like that. It was too much for him mentally. And I had to get over the anger, but I stayed on him like, "You need to spend some time with your mom. Go up there and sit in the room. Yeah, she's not talking. So what? Talk to her. Turn the TV on. Say something. You know what I'm saying? Come in here and visit with your mom because you don't know how long she's going to be here."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any guilt um in my mother's transition because I did what I was supposed to do. I'm sure my brother still does. That's why me and him don't get along right now. I don't care. My dad, when he got sick, I told my brother, I said, "You're gonna have to get over it because we need to communicate about our father."
Yeah.
So my dad, he made a full recovery. He is obsessive about working out. Thank God he's extremely healthy. So he's back swimming and running and getting on my nerves. So he's fine. And my grandma is getting stronger. But I will encourage anybody that is caring for a loved one, care for yourself first. One thing that I do without fail, I'm gonna go to the gym. Okay. I might not even break a sweat, but I'm going up in there.
I'm the
I
red
might go
guy.
I might go in there and just lay on the daggone massage table for 10 minutes and walk out. That's my business. But I'm gonna go to the gym and at least 3 days a week because I gotta take that time for myself. When my mom was living, I was her caregiver 24/7. The only time I left the house was to go to the gym 3 days a week. So I had 1 hour out the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and for the rest of the time, I was in the house with her. When my grandma had her surgery, same thing. I've been in the house with her 6 days a week. But see, the difference is my grandma got 5 children.
Okay.
My aunt, her oldest son, my uncle died the year after my mom. Within 12 months, she had lost 2 children in 12 months. She was
Mm.
sitting in this house, just sitting, staring out the window, feeling bad for herself. And then she gets sick and she's like, "Just let me die." I was like, "Yeah, not really, because I'm here, you know, and we're going to get through this." So basically, I harassed her back to health. And she's in the other room right now on her iPad looking at videos on Facebook. And let me tell you, it's so inappropriate, whatever it is she's looking at, but I don't even say nothing. I'm like, you grown, be great. Okay. I don't know how you found what you looking at, but ma'am, do you. Okay. So I'm here with her now. But I called the rest of her children and I said, hey, guess what? I took one for the team with my mom and with my dad, but this is y'all mom. Now I'll be here for the duration, but I'm gonna need some help. I need to get out this house. I'm gonna go stir crazy. I told my uncle, it ain't no reason that somebody should have had to call you and tell you about your mama when you can stand on her front porch and see your house. Get over here. My younger cousins, well, the kids got practice. I said, you know what? When you first had all them little ugly kids and you needed somebody to watch them, who did you bring them to? Your grandma. Get over here. Okay. So I've been on everybody's back. And so at least 4 days a week, somebody is pulling up in this house. So I was out running around driving Uber when Tracey sent me that text. And I was like, okay, because I sent one of them over here. When I leave the house, somebody better pull up or we're going to have a problem. And they know it. So I just encourage everyone, take care of yourself first. Find what it is that you can do to take that stress off. For me, it's the gym. That's the 1 hour of the day that I own. That's the hour of the day that I know I'm going to the gym and whatever it is I do in there, it's on me, you know. But I just encourage everybody to take care of yourselves in addition to take care of your loved ones because somebody got to do it, right? And
No,
if it's gonna be you, but take care of yourself.
it's the truth. And you can end up being that person where it's like, oh, she got grandma.
Right.
How spicy got grandma? Oh, we're good. You know what? Don't even worry about it. And that is the dark side to dependability.
Yeah.
Sometimes
But you got to speak up. You got to speak up and you got to let your family know because as long as they say, oh, she got it, and you don't say nothing, they will continue. But when I told my uncle, oh, you are her youngest. She love you. Get over here. I sent him a text. Hey, it's Tuesday. I know you get off work at 2 o'clock. I fully expect you at the house by 3. I'm gonna be out driving. Okay, you got a key, let yourself in. So, involve your other family member, harass them until they come through. You know what I'm saying?
it's
Because it's some
unfortunate you have to.
and you have to do it for your own sanity. And that has been the biggest difference between taking care of my mom and dad than to taking care of my grandma because her family, my family, they have really rallied around both of us. So her next door neighbor was over here for a couple hours a day. She said she stayed longer than she ever had. She had, yeah, I did that. My bad. Not
That
really.
is the
Meant it.
sweetest. That's the sweetest. And like I said before, you're gonna be blessed that keep on filling your cup, keep on living your life and making your mark. And you're gonna be blessed for it. We're gonna thank you so much. We're gonna close with Cookie Mama. Next week we're gonna be here talking specifically about taking care of loved ones with dementia and other memory related disorders. Okay, so I will close tonight on Cookie Mama. Okay, Cookie Mama, you may unmute.
Good evening. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your stories and your journeys. That birth order, I feel like I am a middle child, but I feel like I had the characteristics of the older child, the middle child, and the youngest because I lived with my parents until they passed. The joke with my siblings is my parents had to pass in order for them to leave me. Because from birth, I said I was never going to leave. I was like the furniture. I was going to be that old raggedy chair and be with them all my life. And that's basically what happened. So that with their journeys, I was up close and personal. That sometimes I made my siblings mad, especially with my mother. With my father's journey, my mother was there, and we were her support team. During my mother's journey, it was all of us. But then the pandemic hit, and nobody could go in, and I was the one that lived in the house, and being the one that was retired, because I could be there all day long when we were allowed to be there. And at some point during my mother's journey, there were times when only one person could go into the hospital for however long they were there. And I was that chosen one. And there were times when I agree with this being very important to take care of yourself. I did not. I also have health challenges, and in not paying attention to myself, and I'm not that tall, and I wasn't that heavy to begin with, I lost about 14 pounds, which I started being barely over 100 pounds, and I lost 14 pounds because I was so busy trying to make sure that my mother ate and that she did what she was supposed to do. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And even though I had the support, and my siblings would say, just go to your room, go downstairs, go eat, I just felt that I could not let my mother out of my sight. And I did not take care of myself. So for everyone, just make sure not only do you take care of yourself, but in the midst of loving on your parents, let your siblings, let your friends, let your family step in and support you, because support is very important. Love is so important. And I just thank God that my siblings and I, as much as I made them crazy, still loved on me and did what they needed to do and how they needed to do things because they loved our parents so much. And even in my mother's journey, near the time during her transition, my son came and stayed. And he was so happy that he was able to be there, because in his line of work, he wasn't able to be there because he was up close and he's a first responder. And he couldn't be there because almost every call was a COVID case. And he did not want to do that to his mother or his grandma, which he was raised in the house with his grandma. So I really felt like I was a surrogate. And my parents were his parents. He had gotten hurt, so he was off work. He stayed there, and he would talk to her, and he'd read her books, and they would just have conversations. He was just grateful that he was able to do that. And the other grandchildren would stop in, but nobody wanted to bring COVID in the house. So everyone was extra careful about what was happening. Again, I am grateful for the support. And even my cousins would call her and try to FaceTime, and I am not electronically savvy, so it was an adventure for my cousins to be able to see their aunt. And during that time, she wasn't able to attend several homegoings. We had cousins that had passed away, friends, other family members. That pandemic was vicious on the homegoing scenario, the homegoing celebrations, and she was not able to do that. And her being the one that was always there for everyone and would open her door and feed everybody, and she wasn't able to travel anywhere to support her family. And I think that kind of took a toll on her. And my cousins would call her for the support and let her know that they loved her and they understood why she could not travel to support them. And it was a beautiful thing. It's a great thing when you have the support and the network to help you through the transitions of not just your parents, but your other family members. I say that I was born a caregiver. Even though I was not a nurse or in the healthcare profession because I just couldn't do that. I didn't have the wherewithal to become a healthcare provider, but my love and my support, I could care for anyone.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so important that we ended on this note because so many caregivers pass away even before the person that they're caring for. And some of us really deal with diminished health. So I'm glad you brought that out, Cookie Mama, and just the different nuances with the family. You know, everybody can't come around. Everybody can't bring these sicknesses around. You know, mom, you have to be the gatekeeper and kind of the bad cop. And that's a lot of pressure as well. But please, 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 all of you out there and all you sisters here in the room, please take care of yourselves. We heard from Hot and Spicy. She's in the gym. We're hearing from others, you know, what they do. Get your thing, whatever your thing is that gives you life. If it's going to church, if it's taking walks, if it's watching inappropriate videos, like grandma, that was so whatever gets you through, get through. Continue to give yourself life and feed yourself because you deserve it. You are just such a blessing to the world, a giver. A giver is a powerful thing, and it is always wonderful to start at home and in your own community with your elders, with your children, with the vulnerable. And we are just so grateful. I'm so honored to be in this space. Dr. Tracey, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'm so proud of all the ladies for sharing and for you, Jai, for creating this space. I would just add that, you know, when a parent declines, the children often feel the ground shift from beneath them. And I think we heard those stories today because there's a sense of a loss of that last layer of protection. They feel the pressure to get it right. You know, am I doing enough? Am I honoring the wishes of the parents? And then they sometimes, there's this return of these childhood dynamics, old wounds and roles, and you know, that kid that held it together feels obligated to be strong again, or the one that struggled for approval is feeling that pressure return. And there are a whole host of private emotions that they go through, but I think everyone had it right tonight when they brought up especially that point of self-care, because we cannot be good to others if we are not doing well ourselves.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Tracey, for just your masterclass. I'm going to say it one more time on this area. So anyone watching, please add your comments. Please toss some questions up and we can get back to you. If you need further support, I will drop an email on the end. And Dr. Tracey, any information you would like to share as well. It is important that we care for ourselves. She wrapped it up. So continue to love yourself, love your family. It doesn't matter what they're saying out there. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do that. No, follow your heart. Follow your heart and love your family and do what you have to do and trust God with the rest. Everybody have a blessed evening and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Right. Thank you.